Good morning. You're with us here on a fresh new edition of Bazaar Morning Call. We are coming to you live from the CNBC TV18 Motorola studios. I'm Prashant. With me, my colleagues Surbi and Nigel. Guys, hi, good morning.
Hi, morning. Folks. Over the weekend, we had plenty of headlines coming in from global geopolitics, and suddenly Syria is the sort of center of the world for all kinds of reasons once again. But I think the bulls have been fairly optimistic so far in December. We had some great commentary come through from the top business leaders at the India Business Leaders Awards. So I think we're starting the week fairly optimistic.
Well, that's right. And what an event it was, right? On Saturday, 25 years of CNBC TV18, 20 years of IBLA, and the who's who, the topmost voices from industry as well as from market. So a very, very great evening it was.
It was a stellar event, right? I mean, absolutely stellar event. I think we'll play out sound bites and what we got out of that event through the course of the day. So, Ruby, by the way, a little birdie tells me you celebrated your first anniversary as well.
So that's 7 December is a very special date. Personal and professional reasons for me. So, yeah.
It's a very, very special day. It's my mother's birthday as well. So for me, I've been here for 14 years. And for 14 years, I've been celebrating my creator as well as my employer's birthday. So nice. I love 7th of December.
Well, those are pictures which are coming through. And I think you've got the star cast. I mean, the winners essentially are all up on the stage. This is, of course, towards the end. I mean, Mr. KP Singh right there at the center, Mrs. Neeta Ambani, and all the other winners there as well. Mr. KP Singh, 95 years old. And, I mean, what a guy. Set up DLF from scratch and, of course, absolutely going strong and gave a really rousing speech towards the end after collecting that award. But, I mean, so did everybody else up on the stage in terms of the winners, the pictures that you're seeing. You also, by the way, had a contingent from IIT Madras. CNBC TV18 ordered IIT Madras as sort of an institution which has enabled so much innovation and sort of startups in the country. Really outstanding event. And as I said, we will get you snippets of that conversation, snippets of what happened there with industry leaders, with the winners and others through the course of the day. Okay, well, let's just turn our attention to the markets to begin the day as we always do, right? So we're coming off very, very strong markets for the last 2 weeks or so. And I think the change will come up on your screen. 3% plus on the Nifty. This is the last fortnight, 2 weeks. The Nifty Bank is up 4.6. The mid-cap index is up almost 7. And the small-cap index is up almost 10%. And this is not low to high. This is close to close. The close 2 Fridays back and the close last Friday. And these are the changes. So remember, this is the backdrop. Very strong gains. In the case of Nifty Bank, we're about 1.5% away from its all-time high. So market's done a fair bit of repair. Now, just to rewind the clock back and take you through where we left off on Wall Street on Friday, U.S. equities ended higher. You had the Nasdaq, which is up about 0.8%. The S&P 500 was up about 0.25% or so. You had, and of course, I mean, the overlay was the U.S. jobs data, which, I mean, in terms of the headline number, etc., there was some nuance, but generally was positive. But there was a higher than expected unemployment rate, which came through. And this is the reason why, the December Fed pricing now is, in a way, locked and loaded, almost locked and loaded for a 25 basis point rate cut. Actually, pre-meeting, if you look at the Fed pricing, market Fed pricing, it was about 16 basis point cut. It moved up to about 22, 23. So it's not 50, at least in December. It is 25 to begin with. Yields across the curve also sold off. So the 10-year, for example, was down about 3.5 odd basis points. The dollar moved back up above the 106 odd levels, but there wasn't very much by way of flow or activity. So we'll have to see. And especially, of course, what's happening with things like the yuan, things like the euro. And these are the bigger constituents which have appreciated in the last 2 weeks or so, and the reason why the dollar was a little subdued. So I think we'll need to see this. Markets, of course, will watch the US CPI. I mean, there is one more set of data, CPI and PPI data, Producer Price and Consumer Price Index. And consensus expects these data points also to be largely sticky and elevated. So shouldn't change the trajectory unless, of course, they're very, very large and different. China's Central Economic Work Conference likely this week sometime. We don't know when, maybe Wednesday and Thursday. And it is possible that they could sort of, announce the much anticipated stimulus package, policy support or whatever. Some sort of policy support is needed, is required. Will they do it, of course, is the question. I'll just tie in the levels here without, they're not very different. The market on Friday had a negative close both on the Nifty and the Nifty Bank. after, of course, the thriller that we had on the previous day, which is on Thursday. Friday was quiet and slightly sideways. Resistance comes in at 25,125 for the Nifty, which is the 50% retracement of the entire fall. And the support comes in at about 24,454, which is the 40-hourly exponential moving average on the downside. These are, again, very near-term sort of levels around where we closed. Nifty Bank, I mean, I think there is no two ways about it. On the upside, targets are the all-time high, which is 54,467. Supports, though, come in again at the 40-hourly, which is 52,961. GIFT Nifty will come up on your screen, gives you a quick sense of how we likely to start. It's about 50-odd points lower. Surabhi.
Okay, well, yeah, lots to track in terms of those international cues as well as local action over here today. For starters, I think the jobs report is being interpreted as just right, hitting the sweet spot because it's not very strong, it's not very weak, and it gave the market reasons to believe that now the possibility of that 25 basis points rate cut this month, it's increased because before this report came out, the CME Fed Watch tool was pointing towards a 65% kind of probability, but now it's a 85% probability that indeed there will be the 25 basis points that's delivered by the Fed. So that's on the interest rate expectations. But there's, of course, a lot of talk on geopolitics, and that'll keep the market occupied in terms of at least sort of just chatter and track. Not that Syria is center stage right now. But yes, it's a very fast-moving situation, so we'll have to see how that plays out. By the way, speaking of geopolitics, in South Korea as well, there is no clarity. The market's been trading down this morning again because it seems that the president is not going through an impeachment, but it's not clear as to who really is sort of controlling power, and the markets are worried. So that's what's been playing out. Overall, the other talking point in China, like Prashant mentioned, that it is this leadership meeting that's going to happen, where a lot of key economic stakeholders will come together, the economic mandarins, so to speak. This is happening on Wednesday. And ahead of that meeting, the data that's come out of China this morning is not very promising in terms of inflation. What is that data telling us? That producer prices are still in deflationary zone. So producer price inflation has actually fallen again about 2.5% in November. And even at retail level, the retail inflation in China is at about a 5-month low. It's a fairly weak economic print coming through, which is why people will anticipate more measures, more announcements, and some real hard stimulus this time from China. Quickly to come back here. Now, in the recovery process, the Nifty has taken aim at the 100 DMA last week. In fact, on Friday, intraday highs were around this 24,700 mark thereabouts. So let's see if the bulls will, take that out today. The mid-cap market has been on an absolute tear last week as well. Mid-cap and the small-cap indices together were up between 4 and 4.5%. So let's see if we get more of that. The Nifty is about 6% away from the all-time high, but it's the banks that have, taken that baton and carried that market forward. Will that continue today? That enthusiasm post the CRR rate cut, will that sort of translate into more gains for bank stocks? So we'll watch for that. FPI numbers, very interesting. Now, Friday was negative, but December overall so far is fairly positive. There were net sellers again on Friday to the tune of about 1,800 odd crores. But look at the picture so far. 94,000 crores of selling in October, 22,000 crores of selling in November, but December is already positive, over 24,000 crores. So let's see if we can keep getting some respite from the endless selling. Today, it's a very heavy stock-specific day. I'll just leave you with some sort of flavoring of what's to come. CEAT is acquiring a very critical part of Michelin's business. This is the off-highway, off-track business for about 200 million. So that's in focus. Delta Corp is revising the contours of the demerger of its hospitality and real estate business. So that's a stock that's going to be in focus. Godrej Consumers come out with some very negative commentary. Mid-quarter update on the third quarter, talking about flat volumes, talking about margin pressure. We'll tell you more about it, but watch out for Godrej and the FMCG pack. And last but not the least, Paytm. Now, it's looking to raise some money. And how will it do that? By selling what is known as the stock acquisition rights in a Japanese payment firm. Net-net, it should bring in about 2,300, 2,400 crores into the company. So it looks positive. But a lot of stocks are going to be in focus. So we'll watch for all of that. Nigel.
Well, I would like to watch the cash market flows yet again from the FIs because, they were showing us the money, but they took a bit of a break on Friday and the markets couldn't move up. And I say this because now bulk of their short covering actually has taken place from net short positions at around 1.2 lakh contracts. It's come down to sub 40,000 contracts. So now you'll require to see some cash market buying because majority of that short covering bounce has taken place. So let's see how that goes. In terms of positioning, yes, the FIs, they continue to remain net short, 55% of their positions on the short side, and in absolute terms, close to around 40,000 contracts on the short side. clients, they remain net long. The net long positioning is at around 1.05 lakh contracts or thereabouts. And also you have it in percentage terms at around 59%. Moving to the options data then, two strikes are fairly active, 25,000 call, which seems to be a bit of a resistance zone on the upside. So the 25,000 call was active. On the downside, the 24,700 put was active as well, premium at around 200 rupees. So going by that put, 24,700 put being active, the 50 DMA as well is in this vicinity of around 24,550. Options data, 50 DMA suggests that this 24,500 mark becomes the first reference point on the downside. Last week's high of around 24,900. That's a bit of a resistance zone, but to round it off, it'll be around 25,000 odd on the Nifty. The Nifty Bank, well, you should see some kind of support coming in at around 53,000 odd. While the recent highs closer to around 53,900, 54,000, that becomes a bit of a resistance zone. Today, I'm going to give you, the stock to track as well as, the sector to track. So in terms of stock to track, Senco Gold, that's the stock that I'm looking at. It ended mildly above the 20 DMA in Friday's trading session. And also keep in mind that the stock from the recent peak has corrected close to 25%. However, it ended quite strong in Friday's trading session, and there was delivery-based buying that we saw. So the delivery quantity on the NSE was more than 4 lakh, shares. And in comparison to that, normally it's sub 1 lakh. So Senco Gold is a stock that I'll be watching for the next few trading sessions. That's point number one. Point number two is, Godrej Consumer has come out with their release, and they've come out with it ahead of the end of the quarter as well. And they're sounding a little bit skittish. So it could add to some kind of nervousness on the FMCG pack. Keep in mind, we had HUL and Colgate, both of them had their investor meet, and both of them stopped short of giving any kind of confidence with regard to the recovery on ground, which could add to some kind of nervousness on the FMCG pack. So we'll keep an eye on the stock, keep an eye on the pack. Senco Gold in terms of stock in focus and in terms of sector in focus should be the FMCG pack.
Okay, absolutely. With you on that completely, Nigel. Watch out for how some of the other FMCG names react as well. So let's get started with the equity call of the morning. Lawrence Belanco of CLSA says last week's break above the 50 DMA reinforced the original breakout from October-December basing pattern. He says this action reinforces the idea that the correction of the September highs has bottomed and provides an initial upside target of 25,754, with the next chart resistance provided by the late September highs at 26,134. Interestingly, he adds the NSE small cap index led the India market higher last week with its break above the 50 DMA. Lawrence says the NSE mid cap index too has broken above its 50 DMA with relative price action on the cusp of a breakout to new all-time highs.
Okay, well, that's an important sort of technical view, which is widely watched by the market. Let's quickly tell you what the corporate interactions are, which are lined up here over the next 2.5 hours or so. 8:30 this morning, we have Prakash Devan joining us for some fundamental stock analysis. At 9 o'clock, we'll be joined by Pranav from Bernstein, and we discuss the banking and the MFI space. 9:20, Tahir Badshaw of Invesco Mutual Fund will join in for markets. 9:30 a.m., the management of CEAT. They've signed sort of an agreement to acquire a company. Following that, Sanjay Rudra of Union Bank will be speaking with us on their H2 outlook. 9:50, Tata Power joins us and they outline their F530 targets. And of course, towards the end of the show, it's our segment, it's the economy. Latha will be in conversation with Timothy Moore of Goldman Sachs and talk about outlook for the Indian market in 2025.
Well, we're slipping to a short break, but we've got a lot of stock-specific action to track for you. We get to that in just a bit on the other side. But for the time being, I'll run you through the list. CEAT, Paytm, JSW Energy, Suven Pharma, Laurus Labs, all of them will be reacting to positive news flow. Add to the list, Welspun Corp as well will be reacting to positive news flow. On the flip side, Divi's, Pharma, Syngene, Godrej Consumer will be reacting to negative news flow. Slip into that snappy break, come back. We'll get into further detail on all of these names.